All right. This is the Community Preservation Committee on Thursday, August 8th, 5:30 PM. Actually, it is 5:34 according to the clock on the wall. We're going to start this meeting. Oh, hi, Peter. Peter, welcome. Before we start all of the work of the committee, I'd like to welcome Peter McIver, who is our new member from the planning board. Peter, hi, there you go. Hi.
Hello.
I'd like to introduce you to the other members of the committee that are here, at least today. I'm Susan Wargafik. Christy?
Wisty Rohrbacher. Hi, Peter.
Oh, Don's here too, but. Becky, you're muted. I think. We couldn't hear you.
There's two Beckys somehow. There's
Yeah,
Becky with video and muted Becky.
Yeah. Donna is here. Donna, you want to introduce yourself?
Hi.
Peter, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Donna Dussel, member from the Recreation Commission.
All right.
Howdy. Garth. I guess I'm a mayoral appointment.
David?
I'm David Brock from the Historical Commission. Nice to meet you, Peter.
Okay, so I need somebody to take minutes. Can I get a pigeon here to do that? Christian is not going to be here tonight, so I need, so who would be able to take minutes tonight? We'll set up I'll try to set up a real rotation on this for the next meeting. So do I have a person? Oh, thank you, Donna.
Yep.
Thank you. Okay. All right, so we can start this. It's going to be a little crazy because Christian is not here and there are things that I can't do on this computer system. So I'm going to try to make sure that we have all of the information that we need. And I want to, did everybody receive documents from Christian in the last hour or so? Okay, good.
I didn't see them.
Okay. All right. So let me start with the chairperson's statement. This meeting is being recorded by the Community Preservation Committee. If any persons present are doing the same, you must notify the chairperson at this time. And it looks like we don't have any guests, so, okay. Let me call the meeting to order then, and call the roll. Wisty? Here. Donna?
Here.
Garth?
Here.
David?
Sorry, here.
Peter?
I am present.
Becky? Okay, Becky's going to wave at us. It's very strange, Becky. There is a whole other you there with that has a that is not yeah. Okay.
So he's talking and doesn't know.
Yeah. We can't hear you because of the other Becky. The other Becky is muted.
Hold on.
Okay. All right. The next thing on the agenda is public comment. No discussion or comments will be entertained unless requested upon by the chairperson of the committee. I see no one either online. Now there's two of you online, and one of you is still muted. I don't see anyone.
Can City Hall meet as the host? Can you unmute her other one?
I can't.
No,
I
they're
don't know
both
how to work
unmuted.
this system. I have no clue on how to work
Can you
this.
can you hear me
Now
now?
we can hear you.
You're live.
Yay.
You're live.
Yeah. Okay, great. Excellent.
These two Beckys are
But
even
there's-
better than one.
Yeah.
Take it. We'll take
Can I
it.
vote twice?
And
Okay.
they
No,
identical.
you can
It's
only
great.
vote once.
Get your double mint gum.
Okay, as we have no one from the public here for this meeting, we're going to close public comment and move on to approval of the minutes from July 25th, 2024. Do I hear a motion about those minutes?
Motion to approve the July minutes?
Second?
I'll second.
Okay, Donna seconds. Okay, any discussion? Seeing none, I'm going to call the roll on that one. Okay, Donna,
Yes.
Wisty.
Yes.
Garth,
Yes.
David.
I'll abstain since I wasn't there.
Okay, Peter was also not available, so I assume he will abstain. Peter, is that accurate?
That's accurate. I'll abstain.
Okay, Becky. And I'm Susan, and I also say yes. Okay, on to new business. We have received a request from the Community Preservation Coalition for dues. It's $875. For those of you who are new to this committee, the Community Preservation Coalition is a statewide body that has assisted us in any number of times in terms of training for folks. They've also, whenever we have a question where it's, well, it could be this or it could be that, what do you think? Can you give us some advice? They have been very good at doing that for us. So they've really been an invaluable resource for us to be able to do our work and to do it well. I don't know if anyone else has any comments they'd like to make. Donna?
I was just going to make a motion to approve remaining members in the Community Preservation Coalition at the price of $875.
Second.
Second by Wisty. Okay, any discussion?
Just noting that that comes out of the admin.
Yes, that will come out.
Yeah.
Yep.
It seems like the thing we should do.
Okay, so let me call the roll. Wisty.
Yes.
Donna.
Yes.
Garth.
Yes.
David.
Yes.
Peter.
Yes.
Becky.
Yes.
I'm Susan and I'm a yes. Okay, moving right along. Okay. Okay, this is, has everybody seen the documents that Christian sent over around, in particular, this is around the Oxbow design and changing the disbursement process? No, okay.
I didn't get a chance to read through that one yet.
Okay,
I did.
what this is Oxbow, because it's a relatively small organization, asked if they could work so that they have, instead of having to expend the money first and then get a check, if they could show that the work has been completed and that they have spent, and then they spend the money, they could get the check that way, so that no longer would they have to wait a long time. And Christian talked to the accountant here at City Hall, and she said that within this, as long as they can show that the work has been completed, that the accounting system here doesn't have any problem with that. So that we don't necessarily have to have everything done before they can receive a check, that they can show that they're in process, and that's sufficient. So with that, it would give some flexibility to the smaller organizations to be able to work with the city accounting system, which can be cumbersome at times. So the city is feeling fairly comfortable with this process. Let's see if I can, I've got so many pieces of paper here right now.
So it's saying rather than reimbursing, can we just have
we can give some money up front.
Reimbursing the applicant, can we just basically pay the invoice?
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah,
So,
that's-
and it would, and, as I said, the city feels fairly comfortable with it in terms of their accounting, and, if people feel like this is a reasonable approach, then we can move forward on it.
So there's an invoice, right?
Yep,
For work that was done. So
Yeah.
that seems very reasonable.
okay. All right, so if we have a motion to that effect, that, will allow for the alternative disbursement schedule, let me see, maybe I can find it here, just a second. To give you the exact
only
word.
question is that going to be our general policy, or are we,
That, yeah, that's, yes. So the changes, I do have it here, so let me bring it up. Okay, so what it would be is, the submittal of paid invoices and what has been, there would be a preferred approach, which has submittal of paid invoices and receipts along with quarterly reports. The alternative would be submittal of unpaid invoices for completed work along with quarterly reports, submittal of receipts and proof of payment within 2 weeks of disbursement. The disbursement is to the grantee, and the disbursement will not be made to the grantee's contractors. So what Christian has asked is if we can have both of those in the disbursement process, and that would give us the opportunity to be able to work with some of the smaller projects that we have where they don't have the cash flow necessarily to be able to put something forward.
But they've already paid it.
They have submitted an unpaid invoice.
Unpaid invoice. Okay.
Unpaid invoice, and so, but they are able to show that the work has been completed. So as long as they can show the work's been completed, either through a receipt or or proof, through unpaid invoices for completed work along with quarterly reports, or submittal of receipts and proof of payment within 2 weeks of disbursement, that the check would then go out fairly quickly to them.
Even though we will probably work with a lot of smaller organizations, that seems to make a lot of sense.
Okay,
So how do you word that?
I got it right. I just read it to you.
All right,
I will read it again. Okay, this is what the motion would be about. There would be 2 forms of reimbursement. The preferred form is submittal of paid invoices and receipts along with quarterly reports. The alternative is submittal of unpaid invoices for completed work along with quarterly reports, submittal of receipts and proof of payment within 2 weeks of disbursement, with a note that the disbursement is to the grantee. The disbursement will not be going to the grantee's contractors.
I move that we go ahead, Donna.
Well, it is, the last part makes it a little bit confusing, and what I'm hearing here is the first part is what we already have, and the second part
correct.
is what we're adding.
That's
So it
correct.
seems to me that the motion would be to add the second part as opposed to approving what's sort of already approved.
That's
Does that
correct.
make sense?
That's correct.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
okay.
say all that.
Yeah, so, I think, Peter was about to move that we accept that, and that's the second, to add the second part of that payment schedule as part of our regular operations. I think that if you send me the exact language, I can put it into the minutes.
Okay, I will send it to you. You
Okay,
actually should have it. It's from Christian.
okay, I'm just looking at this email where,
It's one of the Google Docs.
This is
that he
in
sent.
the shared drive.
yeah, I know, I see,
Okay.
Oxbow draft of CPC agreement, 1 copy disbursement policy.
Yep, I'll send it to you, Donna. I'll send it to
Okay,
you.
no, I think I've got it. Let's
yeah,
see.
it's the item 1.
Okay. All right, well, let's just move on, so we're not,
Okay,
Okay.
so can I
Okay,
have a
alternative.
motion? Donna, you've made a motion to use that
Um,
language, correct?
Peter made the motion.
Peter made a
You
motion.
good with being the motion maker, Peter?
Okay, do I have a second?
Yes, you encompassed what I was looking for.
Okay.
And I
I'll
need a
second.
second, Garth, okay? Any further discussion? Okay, we'll go the roll. Donna,
Yes.
Wisty,
Yes?
Garth,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
Becky,
Yes.
and I'm Susan, and I also say yes. Okay. Okay, now these requests are a little more complicated, and I will, all right, this is, Tim Grader has asked for two things. And we're going to take them one by one and see if we want to go with them or not. The first one is, and this is in that, is in the shared drive. Go back. Okay. And I'm trying to find it. There is a
request for a 15-year restriction as opposed to a 30-year.
well, we can start with that one and then go to the other one. Yes.
Can I ask it, where are you seeing this? I'm in the Google Drive, but I'm
You're
not
in the
sure
Google
which.
Drive, you should have a shared drive that says Community Preservation Committee, and then in that drive, there is one that says 24-25 meetings.
Got it.
And under that, there is, there are several pieces of
Okay.
documentation.
I'm with you. Yeah.
Okay, so we can start with the question around the 15 to 30-year restriction. Tim's argument is that because he is going to have to repaint the cornice in about 15 years, that he would like the conservation restriction to not be 30 years, but be 15 years, and he could probably come back to us to ask for money if he chose to repaint it. We have right now, we agreed at the last meeting that all of our restrictions would be 30 years. So this would be a change of that policy. And frankly, and what Christian said to me was, if we're going to do that, we also would need to probably allow Isaac the same option. So, and it's, Christian's line was, I can go either way on it. So, what do people think? Do you want to keep the 30-year restriction on it, or do you want to move to a 15-year restriction?
Well, I think this is tricky. I mean, is this going to be changing our policy forever for everything? Is this something we do on a case-by-case basis?
We have, we can do it on we could make that as a statement, or as a decision that it's going to be case by case. And then it could be offered to, Isaac if we chose as an option, which he doesn't have right now. Or we can leave it at 30 and just say that's the way it is. But at our last meeting, one of the things Christian says is he had talked to the CPC coalition, the CPA coalition, and they had said that most places use 30. And that was part of the reason we went with 30 last time. But we can change it if we choose. There are some places that have 10-year.
So I
David?
have another question.
Okay, and then
So,
we'll go to David.
So just because he's getting 15-year paint, and so after 15 years, the paint starts flaking or whatever, how is the flaking paint going to conflict with the historic preservation piece? Because, I mean, if you don't change it, a historic building whether the paint's flaking or not is still a historic building.
Mhm.
So that's confusing to me.
Is
David?
there such a,
David had his hand up. David?
Yeah, I think these restrictions don't mean that you can't do anything additionally. And there's a very nice paragraph in Christian's email reply to Timothy Grader that I think would be relevant just to, if I could just read from it.
Absolutely.
It says, at one of their recent meetings, the committee discussed historic preservation restrictions, and there was a consensus on restrictions for being a 30-year term. This version does include the clause that grants the city council the ability to end the restriction early, no sooner than 15 years. If after 15 years you feel it is prudent to end the agreement, you could request that of the city council and mayor. But here's the important part. The restriction does not prevent continued maintenance of the cornice during the 30-year period. So the implication of that is that, you know, you can paint it, you can take care of it. You just
Mhm.
can't change its character, I think. So
Right.
after I read that, it seemed to me I would be more comfortable leaving it with 30. That's my personal feeling and opinion.
Becky, you wanted to speak? I'm sorry.
I was just wondering, is there such a thing as a 30-year paint? I mean, but I would look around town and houses and say, probably not. So,
Yeah, I mean, this is, you know, it seems to me that this, from my point of view, is a distinction without a real meaning, that, you know, as long as he is keeping true to the restriction, there should be no problem one way or the other. Other people
are
have
you
thought? Go
are you
ahead.
saying that he could come back after 15 years if it
That
needed
was
to be
the,
done
that was the
again?
argument that Christian said to
And-
me, and
yeah.
I don't see why he couldn't, you know, if that were a big issue. David?
As I understand Christian's email, he says that you can maintain and take care of it throughout the entire period of time. So he
Right.
could touch up the paint after a week. You know, it
Mhm.
doesn't say you can't, it's not an anti-maintenance kind of restriction.
But
You know, it's just that he couldn't then, you know, paint it safety orange or change the shape of the cornice, you know. It's that sort of a restriction, not you can't continue to take care of what was just approved.
Right.
But is that what he's asking, or is he kind of asking, could I come back for more money after 15 years?
No, he's really asking about lifting the restriction to 15 years. And when I read it, it didn't seem to make a difference to me. I didn't understand what the issue was. You know, and it seems to me that the restriction is the restriction, and what we're saying is it has to be kept as a historical, you know, building in its, you know, in its form. And, you know, yeah, you can't paint it neon green, you know.
Right, and he can't apply for more money within that time.
And there's nothing that says that he can't apply for more money
Okay.
at that time.
Right.
Well, I
You
think
could-
that
you
it
could
would
apply
then
for
fall
money
into
every
ma-
year for like, oh,
Yeah.
now we need to do this portion and we need $1,000 for that one, and we want to do we want to do the windowsills or whatever it is. Like, you could apply, like, you know, we may or may not.
But I mean,
Funded,
to
but-
repaint that exact portion, not
I
the
think
window.
that the concern would
You
be
could
that
you
it's
could
turning
ask to
into
repaint that
maintenance.
exact portion. Like if
Okay.
you know, if the photos were like, didn't you just do this last year? Why is it falling apart? Right? There might be a lot of questions. You could certainly apply.
I think that one of
Donna?
the things that maybe the concern is that CPC doesn't fund maintenance. And so if you're coming back for,
True.
but I feel like in 15 years, it's not really maintenance. It's like it's another project, you know. My inclination is to just leave things as they are and not overcomplicate things.
Yeah, anyone else have a comment before we try to go for a vote on it? Okay, can I have a motion that we, can I have a motion from someone? I'm not going to tell you the wording.
So I
I
have
would-
a
I would
question.
Motion to, sorry, go ahead, Tom.
If we're not changing anything, why do we need to vote?
That's true. If we're not changing anything, we don't need to vote. Okay. Okay, good enough. Okay, so the
Good.
second
If
part
nobody,
of
if
his,
nobody wants the motion or make a change, then we
Right.
just move on.
okay, so we agreed that we're not going to make a change. Okay. Okay, the other thing is that he wanted to know if it was okay to include within our agreement with him, there's a bill for $495, I believe, for a consultant who consulted on the paint itself to make sure it was the correct color, make sure that it was, within the range of things that would keep it a historic building. And he asked if that could be included in the bills that he would send to us. If you look at, here's what the description of the project is. The historic cornice originally constructed around 1874 has suffered from the effects of weathering, pollution, and general wear and tear. We foresee we see funding to undertake a restoration, including scaffolding, lift rental, and repair and repainting of the metal cornice. So the goals are cornice restoration, paint restoration, and preservation of community heritage. My take is he's talked about painting within the context of the of this proposal, so he can submit the bill, but others may have different ideas. Anybody, any thoughts out there?
Well, in looking at his application, I mean, what is it? We seek funding to undertake a restoration, including scaffolding, lift rental, repair. The fact that he used the word including seems to me that it means that there could be other things. I mean, if it was said specifically or just for, then I would say that that's not what he asked for, but I think that there is some wiggle room, so that's my take on it.
It does say repainting.
Yes,
Yeah, it does say repainting.
yeah,
So he hired a consultant to make sure the paint was the right kind of color and did whatever needed to be done with that cornice. And he's asking if that bill for, let me see if I can find it.
consultant.
$495.
$95, right, okay. Would be included in what he can apply to, what he could send to us.
All right,
So-
I'm going to make a motion to approve payment for consulting from CPC funds for the, for the,
Selection of appropriate color for cornice.
yeah, from the 278 Main Street.
Yep.
project.
I'll second that.
Becky seconds it. All right, we'll do the roll. Any discussion, any more discussion on this? Okay. Donna,
Yes,
Wisty,
Yes.
Garth,
Yes,
David,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
Becky.
Yep.
Susan says yes, so unanimous. Okay. All right. Have people had a chance to consider the update of the plan, of the community preservation plan for this year? It was sent out a
Yeah.
while back by Christian for folks to look at.
I had a chance to look at the suggested edits.
Okay, are there any, let me put it this way, are there any things that have been edited that you would want changed in another manner?
There was the only thing that gave me pause was there are several words that are the suggested changes to highlight them in yellow. They're kind of sprinkled throughout the document. And if you look at the version of the document where it shows like what the document would look like with all the changes incorporated, those highlights look very peculiar to me. So I would, if it were me, I would get rid of the yellow highlights
Okay.
throughout the document.
Okay.
It's kind of
My
a
understanding was that
ridgy thing.
the things he highlighted, so I mean, most of his edits were like, you know, the dates and the times and the, you know, what the average income kind of things, and that he had put the highlights on things that we might want to look at. You know,
Right.
sort of his way of saying like, do we want to keep this or change this? So there's no edits there currently.
Oh,
Right.
But
One of the
yeah, I mean, I agree with Dave. Like, you know, we shouldn't publish it with random highlights on it. You know, if we
I
want to
didn't understand
change
that.
anything related to those highlighted areas, we should change it. If we
Oh.
don't, we should not change it. But regardless, we should remove the
I'll look
thing
at them.
in the final
Okay,
publish.
so then, would folks like to go through those? I'm sorry I can't do this online, I just don't know how. If Christian were here, we'd have that all nicely done, but he's looking for an apartment.
Can I have,
Go ahead.
there's an example that stood out to me when I was reading the summary of identified goals for CPA projects. Under the historic preservation goals, the first two highlights that he made really didn't seem like those were things that the CPA should do. It seems like those are things that the historic commission should do, maybe already has done. Why that would come under the purview of the CPA didn't make any sense to me. And when I wrote to him about that, he said, yeah, that's exactly why I highlighted it, that it should be removed, that those are not
Okay,
the
so-
things.
Can you be specific so we can?
Yes.
And get at them?
Under the, let's see, what page is it?
Page 6.
Yeah, summary of identified goals for CPA projects. And it says, under historic preservation goals, the first two bullet points.
Which are?
Update the inventory of historic properties and sites in Greenfield. And the second one is develop a historic preservation plan. I think that would be the purview of the historic commission, not the CPA.
I'd like to speak
Oh.
to that. I
Okay.
mean, the historical commission has a budget of $0. And those are major goals of the historical commission. And like right now, we're doing some work on item number 1 that you just read, but that has been through grant funding that we've gotten with the assistance of the city from the state. So just as the recreation department comes before this group, you know, seeking funding, it could be that the historical commission does. And, you know, that does reflect a priority of the historical commission, those first two items. So, in the same way that we, you know, in the plan expresses priorities about recreation and priorities about housing and priorities about open space, it's also expressing priorities about
That
historical
makes sense to me, David. I
preservation.
just think it should be written in a way that doesn't make it sound like that's the CPA's job to update the inventory, but we would be supportive of the update and the application from the Historic Commission to put monies toward that, right?
Well, then we would take out all of the goals under outdoor recreation and all of the goals under housing, because, you know, it's having it as a historical preservation goal, like of the community, is what I take these bullet points to represent.
Yeah, I
Okay.
think, right, I think that's how we
Okay.
developed the plan, like we got stuff from recreation, from open space, from historic, from housing, and put those into our plan as, you know, as community goals. So, I mean, you know, obviously we're not actually doing anything, right? We're just handing out money, spending other people's money. The best job in the world. But those are identified, you know, identified things that we've highlighted in the CPA plan as things that we could actually fund, and that, you know, therefore they go under there.
Okay, I get what you're saying. It sort of made it sound like we were responsible for updating the inventory of historic as a commission. And
No, that's
but
what
now
it
I
says,
understand that
the
it's
historic
supporting that.
preservation priorities for CPA project evaluation. That's why it's under there as, you know, is this part of updating the historic inventory and developing a preservation plan? Is this preserving and protecting historic buildings, facades, or landscapes? You know, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay.
So I think it's like you know, it's a checklist for us to refer to rather than having to go to like all the other city plans
Got it.
to try to,
Just-
you know,
Thank you for the clarification.
check
both of
in
you.
on things against
Christian,
that.
I'd like, if you can put it up on the screen because I could not.
Well,
Backing
and
up.
along that vein, I see that under outdoor recreation on the same page, I see that maintain is one of the things that is highlighted, and again, I think CPC monies for me, I'm assuming that that is highlighted because technically CPC money shouldn't be used for routine maintenance, and the question is, do we take that out? Is that correct, Christian?
Yeah, that's why I highlighted it. It's just a change of the word used there needs to happen because maintenance is not allowed, but what other verb you want to put in there would.
I think we
Don,
can just take
Do
it
you
out.
have a
right?
suggestion?
Take it out.
Take the whole thing
Christian?
out?
Take the word maintain out.
Enhance? Yeah. Okay. Anybody else have any comments on that?
Which page was that on?
6, it's right below the historic preservation.
Yeah, can you see
stuff.
my screen now, Garth?
Sorry. Oh, gotcha. Oh, yeah. Right. Yeah, we're not allowed to.
Our
maintain.
technical wizard is here. We can now look at things.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
Christian,
Cool.
could you walk us through the logic of the things that you highlighted in yellow, starting from the top?
Yeah, let's see. The ones in yellow. So I just arrived here when you were talking about the historic inventory and the historic preservation plan. And this had come up right before the first year of funding. The grant that you're talking about to do the update of the historic properties. City's grant writer and the historical commission had come to the CPC asking if that would be something they could fund. You guys could fund. And there was no official determination, like there wasn't a legal review or anything, but it was the impression that the CPC could fund something like that from its administrative account if the committee felt that it was in the interest of the CPC to be able to conduct and select projects, but it was not something that could be funded under a project that applies for funding. And that's because when you look at the chart for CPC, you look at historic, that would really be support, and it's a no for historic. It's not acquisition, it's not active preservation, it's not active rehabilitation. It's more of a support kind of project. So that's why I highlighted it, because it's stayed in the plan, even though that came up about 2 years ago now.
Could you put your
Interesting.
computer?
Oh yeah, you can.
Okay, thanks.
So like we could do housing plans, but we can't do recreation, open space, or historic plans.
That's what it seems
Yeah.
like. Obviously, you would need to figure it out on a case by case basis, get a legal opinion if it was something that was like very concrete in front of you. But for the plans purposes, if something feels iffy like that, that's why I highlighted it, because it is iffy.
Gotcha. Thanks.
So what do folks feel about that particular wording? Do you want to keep it in? Do you want to take it out? Considering all of that.
I'd like to leave it in.
What do others think?
I mean, I think to Christian's point, if we leave it in, but then we get a grant proposal that says we want money to update our inventory and we know that that's support and we can't fund it, then what's the point of leaving it in if it's not
Kristen
something
just
that
said
we
we
can
could,
fund?
and that we don't have a real opinion. You know, I could see a very plausible argument where you could say updating an inventory of historic properties is essential to the active preservation. Now, you know, the whole thing is just like a semantic argument.
Mhm.
But the fact that we could pay for it out of the administrative part of the budget, you know, if that was a determination that we could, I don't see a compelling reason to take it out.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a problem with leaving it in there as a goal, you know, and TBD if we actually fund it or not.
How about if we moved those two toward the end of the list so that it is not seen as the primary thing that we could do? Would that be helpful? I mean, it's not, it doesn't remove it entirely, but it does,
Sure.
you know, move it down a little bit so that, that's not the emphasis.
Yeah, seems reasonable.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, that's an interesting part of why that graph is really sort of it's not realistic in a way.
Mm-hmm.
If you can't support it and you can't create it, then we're using the wrong words in the goal somehow. But as David said, it's semantics, and that's of course what language is. So
Right, and that's why we go to the coalition at times and say, what do we do with this? Because it's that middle ground that's just on the line and we don't know exactly where to go with.
Mhm.
So
Could
do we
be.
feel comfortable with that?
I
Change
certainly
or,
do.
okay, anything further on that? All right, then let's move on to the next one.
I think we missed the first one though, because in my
Yeah.
document, there's a highlighted thing about the mayor at the top of the document.
Oh, okay.
It was in that first paragraph, plan
What?
purpose.
What page?
Oh, there it is.
Oh, right.
Oh, that's not it.
No, in my version, my PDF has a
In the executive
highlight.
summary plan purpose,
Yeah,
making recommendations to the mayor and city council.
Oh,
Oh, yeah, this version just
Yeah.
says city council.
City council.
So yeah, so I had put a track changes thing in there. Because the CPC is making recommendations to the city council, the mayor forwards them along. Again, it's semantics, but elsewhere in the plan, it says recommendations to the city council to keep things consistent. I think you would want to do that there, but obviously up to the
yeah,
committee.
no, I agree,
like
because that was one of the things that we had a problem with before.
Mhm.
Yeah, there was a whole determination made about how that worked, and yeah, the mayor forwards it along to the city council.
I like that edit.
Okay, then let's move along.
Just dates. So this one right here, I don't know how the committee feels about this because in the first plan, it was whatever date's 5 years out from the original one, but then every year we update it, so it's always 5 years out. But I don't know if you envision this as like some sort of 5-year refresh, or if it should always just be getting updated to the next 5 years.
What do folks think?
I would
Are
think
we
it's
going
just
to-
rolling because we're kind of we're at least glancing over it every year. I don't see us necessarily making going back to recreating the plan from scratch every 5 years just because. We should certainly be reviewing it as we go, but I would think a rolling year would make sense.
Or maybe just take out the dates entirely in that paragraph and in the bullet point, in
Mhm.
the first bullet point.
And change it to like the next 5 years, just write the next 5 years.
Just say the CPC certified. The highest CPA priority is, I mean, it's just stating what the current state is.
Yeah.
Does that seem good to people?
Yeah, that's good. That
Yeah.
will keep it evergreen.
Right. Makes sense.
Okay. Anything more on this one?
Oh, that was a good catch.
Yeah. Taking care of that one, and then, all right, so further on, anything, the next one? Oops, did we miss something? Hopes to, that's
We
fine.
do work collaboratively,
Yeah, yeah,
collaboratively,
yeah.
so no reason to say hopes to.
Okay, yeah,
Okay.
okay, and then these are,
So this is just updated funding status. So I deleted the old one, put in the new one. So slightly reformatted, hopefully easier for people to understand and read.
okay,
Nice.
any questions on that, comments? Oh, I see,
Good.
I see no on the head, so I'm gonna assume that's okay.
And then same thing here, just updating it. So there's this top section is the projects from last year, the chart of what got funded. Also includes what didn't get funded. And then from here on out, there's also the prior years. So this will get slightly longer every year. And when things get like closed out, we can make a decision on whether or not we want a really long list of everything you've ever done, or just like the last 5 years or however you want to do it. But that's a decision to be made in the future. So again, just a chart slightly reformatted.
Any comments?
Thank
Seeing
you.
none?
Oh, wait, this is not true yet.
Okay. All right, and then, okay, that's
Changing the date.
dates, yeah. Yeah.
So I guess move this down also to the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
I can fix the formatting later. Housing, putting the updated income limits in. So those are there. Do you want to talk about the
Yeah.
nuance of them?
Yeah, right now, they look like they've gone down. But HUD will be doing its next review in September, and we'll be getting it probably the end of September, beginning of October. And so they could change again, but in general, they're, you know, they're roughly about where they should be. So I don't think it's a big deal because whatever it is, we're going to deal with it at the time. So,
Yeah. Well, there's also, but there's the aspect about the way the CPA law is written, that they're actually calculated differently.
yeah,
Yeah, I don't know if we want to dive into the weeds on that, but the way the CPA law is written, 100%, 80% are slightly different than the way HUD does them. I talked to the coalition. These are the exact right numbers we should be using. It's hard. It's so hard to explain that I don't even necessarily fully understand it. There's calculations that go on behind the scenes that, yeah.
yeah. So we'll go with what the coalition has because that's where we've been, but.
Right. Right. We have to go with the legislation regardless of what HUD says. Right. So
Right.
even if HUD redoes them, it doesn't particularly change unless
Right, HUDs are
there's
generally a
something
little
that the
higher.
CPA is X percentage of the HUD.
Right.
I'm
HUDs are generally a little higher.
I'm just confused by, the first columns look like they're 1, 2, 3, and 4 look like they're monthly, because that's not a yearly.
So there's a
income.
number up at the top.
Yeah, it was just because of the
Okay.
track changes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. It wasn't wrapping well
Okay.
enough to see it.
Yeah. So if anyone goes and looks up the HUD 80% numbers for Greenfield, which a lot of programs use, they won't match these. But it's just because apparently there's some technicality in the way the CPA law is written that they're forced to be calculated differently. And this coalition actually told me that's something that they're pursuing with the legislature to update it so we don't have that discrepancy anymore. But that's something I learned about this year. So these are the numbers provided by the coalition.
Cool.
Okay. Onward.
That's it. So the housing section as a whole.
Oh, wait a minute.
I think it's because of that's another language thing. Rehabilitation, it's only if it's originally funded by the CPA.
Oh, yeah, yeah. So,
Is that true with the conversion of vacant single-family homes too? Or that is what you're talking about? You can only do that if we were the original buyer of that property. Is that what
So
you're
if
saying?
you look at the chart. Housing, rehabilitate and restore. It's just more so that rehabilitate isn't the right word.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Can we
maybe-
just, I mean, rehabilitation and conversion, again, semantics, can we just take them out and just leave convert?
yeah,
And with the understanding that there may be some work that has to be done as part of that conversion?
Wouldn't the word be preserve then?
There's a whole legal opinion, not for the city, just provided a number of years ago in general about what is considered preservation and what is considered rehabilitation. Preservation is essentially the act of saving the parts of the house that are preventing it from literally falling apart. Rehabilitation is the act of getting it back into a state of compliance with all code compliance things, but aren't necessarily preventing it from falling apart. So putting a new flooring would be rehabilitation. Fixing the roof would be preservation.
yeah, it's again, that business between what is new and what is required and new, just to maintain. It's basically, it's maintenance. It's just a different way of looking at maintenance.
Is that no under rehabilitate? Is that, it says unless acquired or created with CPA, does that mean fully acquired and created? Or could it just be a project or a house that we contributed to originally?
I would assume it'd be even if it's partial funding.
Partial funding.
Partial, okay, good to know.
Okay,
If
Can we
that
just-
Habitat for Humanity house needs a new roof in 20 years, we can help.
Right. And can we just talk about what conversion means? I mean, aside from, I'm just wondering if that one word can meet our needs for this without raising any red flags. I mean, what does that even?
It honestly would probably come down to, again, a legal opinion on what the current state of the homes are and how far gone they are, and whether or not that the CPA funded work is preserving them as opposed to rehabilitating them. It's so nuanced, but I think you can probably keep convert and you'd be fine.
At least for the time being.
Yeah, again, when the project comes before all of you, and if it was something that was questionable, you would get in touch with the Community Preservation Coalition and potentially the city's attorney. So
Yeah,
I
because,
think, go ahead, Donna.
well, I'm just assuming, like, say the housing authority buys a distressed property, and they say, we're gonna convert this into affordable housing. That conversion means that they're going to be making some stipulations about who's gonna be able to rent or buy that house based on making it part of the affordable thing, but then they're also gonna have to make it livable. So that's just the
Right.
way my thinking is on this one.
I think the overall thing, what we were trying to get at here is that a vacant single family home could be made into a habitable home as part of this. And I think we've got to figure out what that really means. But so I think we can leave it with convert right now.
yeah.
Any other comments at this point? Okay. Done?
Yeah, so that's done. So the housing section in general, there's about to be a housing plan for Greenfield done in collaboration with the city and a consultant. And so this time next year, there'll be a full-blown housing plan to update this section. All this data is from 2020.
Yeah.
2020. So percentages and all that will be able to get updated next year when that's complete. Right now, it's just in a very draft stage and isn't final, so it's not appropriate to start incorporating the information from it quite yet.
And by the way, if anybody wants to go, the announcement's going to be on the 12th of September. Place is not yet clear, so. Okay. So do we need to vote on these changes, or should we just?
Whenever you feel that the plan is in its final stage, I would just vote on it.
Okay. So does anyone want to make a motion in regard to the changes that we've made?
Motion to accept the plan as edited live.
I'll second that.
Okay, any other discussion on this? Okay. Donna,
Yes.
Wisty,
Yes.
Garth,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
Becky,
Yes.
and Susan, I'm a yes.
So there's your plan for the
Ta-da,
coming year.
Ta-da.
new picture and everything. Okay. Okay, going on to old business. Looking at the processes for this year, and I think that also relates to the letter that we received from Alex Harrow. And this really is in regard to how we're going to publicize what we have, what we're putting out there to the world, and what we need to do. And Wisty, why don't you talk about what we did in the past?
About those other, about like.
About educating the community about what we do.
A couple of the things that we did, one was we had a table at the farmer's market. And a couple of us there, and it just had a nice sign in front of it, and numerous people stopped by just to ask general questions. And now I don't know if we would even have literature or whatever, but that was real early on in our beginning. And I would call that real successful, that encounter. And the fact that people were coming and going and that there was the table right at the Main Street entrance of the farmer's market, we were just real visible. I was surprised how many people stopped. Okay, then we also had a meeting at Elm Terrace. And there weren't very many people who attended who were residents there, but those who did had a lot of questions that were real interesting and useful. And since then, just independently, I've seen one or two of those people, like when I've been working on other projects, and those people stop and they ask more about preservation and refer to the information that they received. So just having that direct contact really was helpful. So the part of the question then is, how do we do that in a place where we have more numbers of people come? And I'm not sure about how to do that. Susan, we talked about having that one at the swimming area.
Yeah, and it was bad because the swimming area was closed.
Yeah, and so that just didn't pan out.
Donna?
Question?
Yeah.
Just for the minutes, Wisty, where was this meeting that you referred to just now?
At Elm Terrace.
One Elm
Okay.
Terrace.
Okay, thank you.
And I think that those are really the only meetings that we've had other than, like at John's On or when we took our meetings to where the people are.
So do folks think we should be doing more of that? I mean, we've had the press releases and such in the paper. And those have, I mean, we have seen an increase in the number of people who show up at our public hearing and such. And people who've come to the meetings to support a particular project that they're interested in. So we're not invisible, but we possibly could be more visible if we decided to do those things. And that requires also that people be willing to do them. Go ahead, Christy.
Just a thought is the people seem to have pretty good attendance at the library meetings when they're in those conference rooms. And I wonder, there is a certain population that really watches what's happening at the library. And so in a way, that would advertise us to perhaps some different people. So that might be something. Another suggestion is when separate from CPC, but Susan was part of what I'm going to say and myself and a couple of other people when we had two neighborhood meetings about the Hope Street lot early on, like a year or more ago. And we happened to be able to have those meetings at the Y. That is not typical. I don't know that the Y ever has done that before, but they did do it. They allowed us to host the meeting there. And again, it allowed different people to come. So I don't know if like the Y would be a potential to ask, but just in some different places, it seems like it's useful to me.
What do other people think? I mean, because basically what we're saying is if we do something like this, some of us have to do it. And that's the other piece of this, that would folks be interested in doing that? We don't have to set a date and time right now, but we've got to do it soon because the pre-applications are due in September. So it really is, go ahead. Go ahead, Carl.
Is this to try to solicit projects or is this to get, right? Because we've already got comments on the plan and we're not ready to get comments on the project. So this is just like attempting to solicit projects?
Go ahead. Mr.
I'm thinking again, particularly about both the Elm Terrace one and the Farmers Market one. A lot of people came up to ask, would CPC be interested or willing to consider this type of thing? So they were asking some more informational questions about how we function. And they had interests of their own, and they wanted to know, were those something that we would consider? And then they also had things that they were recommending to which Giannis was there with me at that. And so we could say, you know, it's not for us to make the recommendation, it would be for you. And so we could encourage people to go ahead and submit an application. So that was more the kind of dynamic that it was, is being available so people could say, would you do this, like that?
A greater awareness, really. in the community.
But because we're, you know, it's now the middle of August and we are talking about we're talking about pre-applications due in the middle of September. There isn't a lot of time. So if folks want to do this, we would have to do it very quickly.
Right, you have to do like a Labor Day weekend farmer's market thing.
Yeah, that kind of thing. So, you know what, I'm gonna let this sit for a minute. And I want to go into, because we've got to get, I'm just looking at the clock. We've got to get through the application instructions and do we have to do anything more on the scoring as well?
I think you do.
Yeah, so we need to get that done. And then I'll come back to this, if that's okay with folks. Okay, so let's get to the,
So 2 or 3 meetings ago, you were making progress on this. I don't remember where you eventually left off. So that's the updated checkbox. Because I know previously it was kind of set up for people to check multiple checkboxes, but really there's one that's the project that's in. So now they check one and it's very obvious which ones aren't allowable. They're blacked out.
Right.
Here's where you left off. The questions asked on the full application and ensuring that they align with the scoring system. Because if you're asking things on the scoring system that are in the application or asking application questions that you don't even end up scoring, both of those are kind of fruitless endeavors. So that couple of meetings ago, you were talking about making the two align.
so in the ones we got rid of, this was 4 was how do you measure success? And we got rid of 5, which was, does the project fit with the requirements of the Community Preservation Act? And then we made some edits on 6. So are there any change that those are all edits that we made? And then personnel, we made slight changes as well. So let's go through, I guess, questions 7 and 8. And do we feel like those are connected to, the scoring that we do?
Okay, so are you ready? I've got my notes out from 3 months
Go ahead,
ago.
Donna.
I'm
Go for it.
trying
Take
to
it away.
remember where we left off. So, so have the appropriate city boards and commissions express support and or approve the project. That correlates, so that's question number 7, which correlates with value number 2, applicant provided evidence of community support. So in answer to your question, yes, we have pretty much a straight line. There's a question, there's an application question, and there's a scoring question at it.
Okay. Any questions, comments on that one? Okay, let's move on. On 8.
8 is also a clear, well, no, 8 is, let's see, that's function 3. Yes, that's also a clear delineation. In the case of partial CPC funding is question number 8, and it falls under project scoring section function number 3. And I feel like we did sort of complete the application questions, and we were moving on to, the scoring stuff, I guess.
Okay.
There are a couple of scoring questions If you go to value numbers 5 and 6, which is innovation and creativity and also enhancement of health, where we don't explicitly solicit information about that in our application. That I could tell, unless we've changed the application, because I haven't updated this since. Well, we
I
have
think-
who will benefit from the project, why and how. I think we could make that a little more distinctive.
Okay, so let's start with 5. Enhancement of health, increases access to nature, improves work or educational environment of the community. I mean, this is a value judgment, clearly.
Yeah,
But the question is that part of, if we look at what we're allowed to fund, that does relate to the overall categories that we're allowed to fund.
mhm.
So, do we want to leave that as it is? Do we want to change it? Do we want to get rid of it? What do folks think?
Well, I mean, I think that it could be looked at as, like when I was scoring that, both benefit to the community and enhancement of health, I went to question number 3, who will benefit from this project? Why? How? I don't know if we wanted to like sort of flesh out that question a little bit, will it improve health, et cetera, or if we want to just leave it as it is. But those, if anything, if I'm answering this question in terms of enhancement of health, I think probably I'm going to find my answer in question number 3, who will benefit, which we also have as a score point.
So other folks have opinions on this. The logic here in terms of enhancement of health, access to nature, improves work or educational environment of the community really had to do with the nature of the things that we fund. And so you can say that having a house as opposed to not having one improves health. Being able to be in a recreational setting can improve health. Access to nature is obviously one that relates to conservation. Work or educational environment could be around a number of those things. So the question is this something that we want to keep, or do we want to get rid of this bit of scoring? It is a value judgment.
Are you suggesting that you get rid of
It
number
feels a
5
little
altogether?
odd, like, sorry. Go ahead, Becky.
I was just asking Susan, were you suggesting you get rid of number 5 altogether? and
I
use-
actually would like to keep it. I think it's a value. I think there are places where we need as a committee to make value judgments, but I don't want to put that on anyone who feels uncomfortable with it.
I agree. I'm fine with keeping it.
I guess the question is, do we mention that like within our plan?
Mm-hmm.
Those
I
things,
mean-
or is it just sort of like popped up in the scoring? Like, we didn't mention this before, but you will also be graded on like how cute
Right.
your dress is that you wear to the final exam, right?
And I think though that we do make nuanced decisions around different projects. We do see them as being more effective at these things or less, depending on what they are.
And I
And-
also
Mhm.
think that it's, sort of inherent in the plan and in pretty much all of our materials that this is something that we're looking for. So I think that I think we can make that value judgment on 5 and I'm fine with that one. I think 6 is another one that's a value judgment, innovation and creativity.
It's interesting to me. Remember that one woman spoke on wanting to have, she brought up the word creativity.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
And so anyway, that was really interesting to me to think about what that one woman said.
I feel like there could be a place for a question in the application that says, how is this a creative solution or an innovative or creative solution to a known problem?
That's an idea. What do other people think? So we can, bring up four, we can go back to four, where the ones that we've taken out, and put a different question in. Does that seem like a question that you would like to have in?
Well, would it be redundant or make it be totally different if we said also original? I mean, maybe original means creative, but like.
It
Go.
could be the timing is off though, right? An idea that got produced at one point was not a good idea at the time. You know, that phrase, oh, we've tried that before.
Yeah.
But maybe 2025 is the year to try it again, because even though it's not original, it's a better timed product.
Yeah, I see that.
So I wouldn't want to make that a requirement that it has to be original or make people feel like, oh, I can't ask for that because I know it's already been asked for, and
Or they did it in another town or something like that?
yeah.
Other
Yeah,
thoughts?
so saying innovative / creative solution to a known problem, then it's known that the problem is known, so, the solution doesn't have to be absolutely original, but there are different, when that woman was talking at the last meeting and she was saying, and it was gonna cost us all this money, but then we had some creativity, and I thought, yeah, it's like when you get the parents to build the playground and then you save a lot of money, but a lot of times with city projects, you can't get the parents to build the playground because of all of the red tape, so.
Okay, we've got I'd like to have us get out of here at least close to on time. So have people other thoughts on this before we move on?
I have one more thought about.
Wait. I want to stay with the idea
okay.
of the innovation and creativity. Should that be a question on the application?
I don't think so.
You don't think so? Can I take a poll? How many think so? People raise hands? How many think so? Two.
Where's,
What do you think, Arthur? Are you okay? How many say no? One and
Two. Does
Two.
David?
David, two. Okay. Peter, have you an opinion one way or the other?
No, I'm pretty indifferent.
Okay, Garth?
yes, I mean, similar. I mean, I think there's the scoring, which we kind of flip through, and then we're also just making, value judgments on any given project.
So I want to make sure I understand. So do you think we should leave the innovation creativity question in the scoring, but not put a question about it in the application?
I'd be more likely to do it the other way.
Put something in the application, but not put it in the scoring?
And what would it say
Right.
in the application exactly?
I think
You're
Donna
like,
had worded.
is this a new innovative idea? Like, if it's a good idea, like, right, you don't need to reinvent the wheel. It'd be like, no, this was a great thing that Deerfield did. I want to do it here in Greenfield too. Be like, okay.
I
Right?
like the
It
word,
doesn't feel like we should be like, oh, everything has to be new all the time. How about we just have functional things that like people have done?
So how about leaving out innovative and just putting, how is this a creative solution to a known
to a known
problem?
problem,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's better.
Yeah,
Okay.
That's,
All right, does that feel comfortable for everyone?
yeah,
Okay, then let's leave that one in. Okay, which means we have a place in the So then the only other thing is the bonus points that we haven't talked about?
So bonus points, you either get 5 or you get 0, and I was feeling like that was a lot last year. I think that 3 might be a better number. That's
Mhm.
my feedback from last year.
Opinions?
I'd agree with that, especially if we've removed some of the, right, haven't we removed some of the other scoring items?
Yep.
So like, that probably shouldn't be more than a 10% waiver one way or the other.
Is 3 okay for folks? I don't particularly care. David? 3's okay? Okay.
Yeah, I
Anybody
think that
else?
makes, that's a good argument. Yeah, to have it be 10% or something like that, So, yeah, 3 points sounds great to me.
Okay. Right, so have we completed this? I know it's been painful.
I know, and I have one more thing, which is
Okay.
under value, number 1, overall application quality and urgency of project. Once again, that's a value judgment, but I just want to point out, and maybe we already talked about this, it's something that's just going to show up. We'll get that from their application, but, there's no question about urgency. Let's see. Who will benefit? Like, why now? We don't have a why now question.
Oh, wait,
Well,
Who
we
will
could put one
benefit?
in.
why and, wait, you just passed.
Why now?
What
Why
was
is it
3?
important to
I
do
thought,
this
I thought we
now?
took out the urgent portion.
Oh, okay, yeah, we could just do overall application quality. That's fine too. And then we don't need a why now question to match it.
How do folks feel?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got shaking heads and saying it's almost 7 and I'm tired. Okay,
Yeah,
all
that
right.
sounds good.
Okay, so are we through with this painful process here? Okay, I want to go back to the question of doing a publicity event, and if so, who would like to do it?
My question on this is, if we know that we're gonna have like 5 times as many requests as we're gonna be able to fund, it doesn't seem like we're desperate for proposals.
Go ahead.
I think it's not just that. I think it's partly reaching out to other people who aren't necessarily ones who might be submitting because they've gotten familiar with the process. But, I would rather not rush the thing.
Mhm.
I would rather think about it and kind of build it into our system.
Sounds okay.
I don't want to just do it on the rush.
Okay, all right. Becky?
Yeah, it seems like why rush to do it before September? It could easily be a fuller event and greater awareness to the public in general in January at the library. That kind of thing, rather than
Okay,
trying to
Yeah.
force more applications.
okay, so Christian, I'm going to ask you if you can bring this up in November for us to, you put it on the agenda for November so that we can then make a plan to do it at least sometime in the winter. It may not be January, it may be a little later, but sometime in the winter to do that. That would be great.
And maybe think of other places, like even just looking at Becky, I'm thinking in the lobby of the hospital might be a really good place because it's a whole bunch of different people. And exactly what the point would be.
Okay, so folks should think about this. We'll bring it up again at our November meeting and we'll have a discussion about it then. Anything more on trying to get ourselves ready for the onslaught of proposals that are coming in September? Okay, review of CPC project updates. Christian?
Let's see. think most of my updates would have been what you talked about previously before I got here. In the state process of contracting with all of the projects that you funded for fiscal year 2024. A few of them have signed, a few of them had the issues that you talked about, and then there's Christie's projects, which should be signed pretty shortly if I'm able to connect with her. So, did you talk about the amount of funding available for this
No,
upcoming
we didn't.
cycle?
We didn't.
So I guess that's the appropriate time to talk about that. That up. So you all had previously discussed at a meeting, I just saw you pull up the spreadsheet, David. At a previous meeting that you favored for this upcoming cycle to only spend the money that was left over after fiscal year 2024 and not use any of the upcoming funding from fiscal year 2025, let that collect all the way. And then this time next year, you'll have a full amount from fiscal year 2025 to devote to projects then. So essentially the practicality of that is that this time around you have a little bit less, but then going forward, you're working with a very, very specific set amount every single year. It's already sitting in the city's coffers. You're not working off a hypothetical budget. So that number for right now is 193,698. One thing to note about that is that's all in the flexible fund. You spent through all of the reserve accounts this past cycle. So this time around, if you wanted to only plan on spending that 193,000, it'd be up to you on where you want to put it. There would be no 10% rule to take into account because you already did that kind of this last cycle. Because you can see of all the total project funds, you're well above 10% for all three categories.
Christian, what is in the city's coffers now that we are not spending?
Currently, there's almost nothing.
Almost nothing.
For fiscal year 2025, the surcharge, the tax surcharge comes in throughout the year on the tax bills, and then it slowly builds up. And so hypothetically, you can spend from that. It's your budget. You know, you're reasonably certain you're going to receive a certain amount of funding. But then you're kind of always taking from 2 fiscal years, and you had all decided or indicated an interest in from working from only 1 fiscal year at a time, to keep things more concrete and easier to understand.
The one thing I'd like to ask people is, considering that this is considerably less than we've had in any year that we've given out money, else the first year we had 206, so it's not that much less. Are folks comfortable with that as what we have available to put out, considering that we did $300,000 this year?
Does that include the state's contribution? 193?
Yep. So this is essentially what's left over after collecting all the money from FY22, which was only the local match. You don't get the state match the first year. State and local for FY23, state and local for FY24, and then the amounts you've spent on administrative expenses, and then the 2 rounds of projects. This is everything that's left over. So this doesn't factor in fiscal year 2025. This is a pretty big, this is literally what's in the city's coffers at this point.
So what we're not doing is spending money that officially we wouldn't get until next July.
Yeah, that's what, so yeah, these numbers will be certified in this month or next month. And so you'll be working off a very set specific number as opposed to last couple of years where you're working off a budget.
We don't have to make a final decision on this today, but people should be aware of it and think about it in those terms, that this would be the smallest pot of money that we would be dealing with at any time. So
theoretically, you could split the difference and pull a little bit from fiscal year 2025, your budgeted amount, which is available, and you could up it to 200K or 250K. But then again, next year you'll have less. So it depends on what year you want to have less.
So the question is, do we want to keep on doing what we've been doing, which is pulling from the next fiscal year to be able to cover a wider number? And so if we keep on doing that, eventually we'll hit this point again. Or do we want to say, okay, we're going to bite the bullet this year, just have less money to spend and put it in and deal with what we have?
I'd like to do less money this year.
Okay.
So I wonder, would it be appropriate to let the public know?
So yes, the reason I bring this up is because you're going to put this out in your announcement as the amount you have available, so people know what kind of projects they should be putting in.
I think that's great.
All
Yeah,
right,
I think you put it, and I don't think we need to try to explain the weirdness of overlapping fiscal years. We just say like, we have a little bit under $200,000 to distribute this year.
Right.
Applications are now open.
Yeah.
exactly. Anybody else have any different opinion on this? Do we need to vote on this? I don't.
No.
No.
I will say if some life-changing project for the citizens of Greenfield comes forward, you can always go back on this and take from FY25 and then you have a very small amount next year. So it's available. But for most purposes, this is the amount you'll end up using.
Any other comments or questions on this issue? Okay, that being said, our next meeting is September 26th, 5:30 PM, likely here and online. I entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Is there a second? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, all right, we're good.